What do you call it when Taylor Swift releases a new album 5 months after the other? That's Evermore! Evermore. It's time. I know I'm a bit late, but you know what? This means that we can, look at other things that have come out since, like the Dropped Your Hand While Dancing chapter. For this video, I'm not going to be reacting to the album. I've already heard it. I did a video reacting to Folklore, and in that video, I used clips from the album, and it was demonetized, which is fine because copyrighted material. But then after like a couple months, YouTube blocked my video. It decided to just take a harsher look at that. What's the point of making a video like this if no one else can see it but me? I had to have YouTube cut out the parts that were keeping it from being shown so that it could be visible again. And so now there are random parts that got cut out. If you watch it now, like the end of the video, it just cuts off mid-sentence. It's kind of sad. So yeah, I just didn't want to set this video up for the same potential fate. So we're just gonna chat about the songs a little bit. I hope that's okay. Grab your tea, your coffee, your juice, your smoothie, your vodka, your whatever it is, and cheers. Let's go. Boop. Red lipstick. Willow. This song sounds like it belongs in the Lord of the Rings soundtrack or something. It feels so like mystical. Looking at like the music video, it's cool how it ties to Cardigan, with at the beginning she's wearing the cardigan, and also it's the same thing of the golden light coming from the piano and like going into the piano and diving into all these worlds through music, through her piano. And so that was really cool to see that direct tie into Cardigan, and also Invisible String with, this golden thread that's, threading together all of these places that she's going and, connecting her to this love of hers. Yeah, and it's interesting. She kind of goes on this journey of all these places. Sometimes he's there, sometimes he's not. One of them appears, one of them leaves, and then finally they end up together, which is nice. It's nice to see that they end up together. But I think it kind of, correlates with the lyrics. Begging for you to take my hand, wreck my plans. Wherever you stray, I'll follow. So kind of this love that maybe isn't easy. There's kind of this leaving and going and this push and pull. You know that my train could take you home. So he's out wherever, but she's like, you could come back to me. I can take you back to your home, your center. But at the same time, she said life was a willow and it bent right to your wind. So her life just kind of, she's this tree and then here's his wind, and she's like, whoa, okay, my life is so intertwined with yours now. This person just kind of came into their life and just changed it forever, swept them off their feet with that line, like, I'm like the water when your ship rolled in that night, rough on the surface, but you cut through like a knife. And so we start out the song just bam, like this person came in and just kind of cut through all the defenses, all the barriers. And that line, and if it was an open shut case, I never would have known from that look on your face, which is such a like beautiful and heartbreaking lyric. Like if it was an open shut case, like open, we have this experience together, and then shut, like closing that door. Like if it was gonna be that, I never would have known from the look on your face, because it seemed like it wouldn't be an open shut case, maybe just an open case and end it there. And then I love how that line repeats later when she says, now this is an open shut case. So it's been opened, it's been closed. Guess I should have known from the look on your face. I love that, how it's repeated later and it kind of tells this story in its repetition. It definitely has this outside of our modern world sort of feel, this kind of naturey feel, which is interesting when she said, "I'd come back stronger than a 90s trend." Oftentimes in her lyrics with, this also happened in the lakes, where it has this very like naturey, earthy kind of feel and lyrics, and then she'll randomly bring in something modern. Like in the lake, she talked about like social media and tweeting, and then in this she's talking about coming back stronger than a 90s trend, which doesn't really fit in quite with the like musical style of the song and the rest of the song, but it works. And so that's kind of a cool thing that I've noticed that she does sometimes. Champagne Problems. Ugh, this song is, I think, one of my favorites on the album. It's such great storytelling, and it really like you listen to it, you're like, oh, and I think it's so interesting how she tells another person's story through her perspective. I mean, throughout folklore, and she's doing more of it, looking at certain situations through multiple different perspectives and playing with people's perspectives. I think it's super cool how she tells the story of, this basically, the story of a failed proposal. But she mainly focuses on the man's story, but it's told through the perspective of the woman who leaves him. And so it's almost like her imagination of what he's going through, like at the beginning where she says, "You booked the night train for a reason, so you could sit here in this hurt. Bustling crowds or silent sleepers, you're not sure which is worse." But we know that it's from her point of view. Later she says, like, "I dropped your hand while dancing." And she almost gives like a bit of her reasoning. "I never was ready, so I watch you go. Sometimes you just don't know the answer till someone's on their knees and asks you." And after she watches him go, she's like trying to think about and picture and imagine his experience while also telling this story, with giving these details which let us know that this was a failed proposal. Like, "Your mom's ring in your pocket, my picture in your wallet. Your heart was glass, I dropped it. Champagne problems. You told your family for a reason, you couldn't keep it in. Your sister splashed out on the bottle, now no one's celebrating." With just these like little, almost like stories about these objects, Like never anywhere does she say failed proposal or marriage or anything like that, but she's able to tell this story, and the person listening can pick up in multiple areas like, oh, this is a failed proposal, because of the way that she kind of beautifully states objects and other people's actions. And it's kind of like all these things outside of them, almost. Your friends aren't applauding, your sister brought the bottle and no one's celebrating, and your mom's ring, going on the night train, and all these people, however green our group of friends, it's still like their group of friends. It's not their actual relationship. It's almost like, this person kind of focuses more on these external things rather than the love itself. And maybe that's why it didn't work out. I don't know. Maybe that's me looking into it too much. But yeah. And then, she also talks about quotes of what people are saying. And so it's kind of still this external kind of thing. And then it's kind of beautiful how she reframes it like, you will find someone, you will find someone who won't do what I did, and you'll find the real thing instead. It still seems, from what they're saying, like that it was still a beautiful experience and something meaningful, but not the end game. It's kind of this almost like goodbye letter from her. I mean, they already said goodbye because she, failed proposal, but saying goodbye to this love and this chapter. And so yeah, it's just such a beautiful story, and the way it's told is really beautiful. With the lyrics are just so good. And also it's interesting how at the beginning it starts with these like melancholy chords, piano chords, and then at the end it kind of has this more like happy, potentially bittersweet like guitar strings that is kind of reminiscent of Invisible String. And so it kind of starts on this more melancholy, cold feel and ends on this warmer, more uplifting tone, which I think also follows the lyrics. And also with this thing, like, of course, failed proposal there's going to be a lot of pain on both sides, but then moving on, there's this, you know, light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's reflected in the lyrics and the music, which is awesome. So, Gold Rush. Okay, there's a lot to say about this song. For one thing, have to point out the connection to Willow. On Spotify, the image that's shown for this video is from the Willow music video. And then right off the kind of beginning, in that first verse, I guess, is this connection to Willow. She says, gleaming, twinkling, eyes like sinking ships on waters, so inviting I almost jump in. So that's a tie-in to, you know, the beginning of Willow, where she's talking about, I'm like the water when your ship rolled in that night, rough on the surface but you cut through like a knife. And so there's kind of that tie-in with like being on the water and ships coming in, you know. This song though is interesting in that I think Willow, you know, it talks about this relationship that's an open shut case. Whereas with this, it's about daydreaming about a relationship that doesn't happen. Even at the beginning, she says, I almost jump in. And then she kind of goes through this potential of the relationship. At dinner parties, I call you out on your contrarian shit. And the coastal town we wandered round had never seen a love as pure as it. And then it fades into the gray of my day-old tea, 'cause you know it can never be. And then later, similar to Willow, where it has that repeated lyric that's slightly changed. At dinner parties, won't call you out on your contrarian shit, and the coastal town we never found will never see a love as pure as it. And so it just is, once again, kind of this heartbreaking, like, this love that can never happen, and kind of picturing it and what it would be like, but realizing that it can never be. In this instance, it seems like because she doesn't like a gold rush, and this partner is the epitome of a gold rush, being this, it seems like, attractive, charming character that's kind of gold and brings gold wherever they touch, and she just can't stand the repercussions of that. But yeah, anyway, it starts with, you know, I almost jump in, and we jump into this potential story, but then at the end, it ends on, I almost jump in, but I don't. You know, it's like I almost jump in, but that almost is still there. She doesn't jump in, she almost does. And that's kind of the whole point of the song, is being on the precipice of this like almost love, also kind of taking a step back and realizing that it won't happen. It's simple, but so like encapsulates the song so well in those short amount of lyrics. Also, of course, have to point out the little nod to folklore there. My mind turns your life into folklore. I can't dare to dream about you anymore. And so that's kind of really interesting about, you know, this tendency to romanticize a situation or think about someone and like almost their life becomes more than it is. And this, you know, like, my mind turns your life into folklore. It's like your life and our potential relationship is this like mystical thing out of reach. And in this fantasy, we settle down by the coast, but because this never happened, we never found this town and we're not there. And the town will never see a love as pure as it. And that's kind of the, I think the most heartbreaking part of the song is a relationship unrealized, the potential of a relationship and a pure love that can't even have the chance to exist. Oh, also, I don't like that anyone would die to feel your touch. And in Champagne Problems, the song right before, she talks about your Midas touch on the Chevy door. And Midas touch, you know, is turning something to gold, and it almost seems like his touch gives a gold rush, because the song is called Gold Rush and about how he's this almost bigger than life golden kind of person. So that's a really cool tie-in between the two songs. 'Tis the Damn Season. Whew, this song is kind of like Cardigan, where it's this old love that you're like reflecting back to, but it's still sad, bittersweet undertone to it. I think this song is tied to Dorothy, yeah? And so I'll talk about that more when I talk about Dorothea, but it's like most of the songs, and I think all of the songs so far, a hard, hurtful love. In this case, it's not necessarily an open close case, you know, it was open and then closed and now it's kind of open again. But the most heartbreaking part about it is this lack of communication on the surface. Like there's clearly something very deep. Like it says, I'll go back to LA and the so-called friends who will write books about me if I ever make it and wonder about the only soul who can tell which smiles I'm faking. If I make it, these people will write books about me like they know me and they're my friends, but really who really knows me and could write an accurate book about me is you. Then also on a surface level, there's this lack of communication, and maybe it's because they both know that it's too painful to work out because they're just going on different paths, right? And that's another thing I love about the song is the motif of roads. Like she talks about the path not taken looks really good now, and you know, this road always leads back to you in your hometown, but she's taking this other path, this road of where she wants her career and her life to go, and that's different from this lover whose path is in their hometown. And so there's these diverging of paths, this coming back together of paths. And she also says we could just drive around. There's a line about the mud on her truck tires, on his truck tires. Time flies, messy as the mud on your truck tires. You know, time's flying. So it's talking about how this song spans a long time, or at least is from a point where a lot of time has spanned. You know, like Cardigan, there's been this long span of time, as opposed to like Betty, where it's, you know, at the beginning of that story. This is kind of more towards a later part of it. And it's such a visual image. Car is moving, and so it's kind of like this moving through time, and it's messy. It's mud flinging off the tires as they're going on these paths. But anyway, I was talking about this lack of communication, which is, you can see in I won't ask you to wait if you won't ask me to stay. So it's almost like, you know, in a movie when, you know, the two main characters really want to express their feelings and the person's like, wait, and then the person's like, I want you to stay. And it's like that missed moment. It is kind of almost like I'm waiting for your move first, but no one ever makes that first move. And so it's lost. Remember how you watched me leave. But if it's okay with you, it's okay with me. If it was okay for you to watch me leave, if me leaving was okay with you and you didn't try to stop it or make something work, then you know what? Like, it's okay with me. You know, I'll leave if you're not gonna stop me. So once again, that kind of disconnect in communication. Yeah, but you know, she comes back for the holidays, and so it's kind of like these two people who, you know, their paths are coming back, but there's this acknowledgement of this pain and this depth of this relationship that hasn't been properly addressed. But maybe they both know it and they feel it, but they're just not explicitly stating it. You know, the lyrics really reflect the melancholy tone. It's the kind of cold, fogs up windshield glass, but I felt it when I passed you. Like, that's such, you can feel that cold, you know, and it's a very physical cold, beautifully described, but then imagine like feeling that emanating off of another person. And then ends on, it always leads to you in my hometown. So it's kind of this circling back to this person. Like, yes, the roads are going all over the place, but at the end of the day, the road always leads back to you and my hometown. Tolerate It. A really sad song off this album. If the other ones were sad, this one's like another little layer step of being sad, as opposed to the other songs, which have kind of been these missed opportunities for relationships that either couldn't happen, never happened, or did happen but feelings weren't ever fully shared. Basically, these songs up until now have been about these relationships with unfulfilled potential, whereas this song is about a relationship that exists but that has turned sour and isn't what it should be. So it's almost the other side of the coin. Instead of this dreaming about this potential relationship, it's the reality of a failing one. Those lyrics, I sit and watch you and notice everything you do or don't do. And that don't do is almost, if not more important than do, right? Because it's this person who isn't appreciating her love and doing enough anymore, as we can see from lyrics like, I use my best colors for your portrait, lay the table with the fancy shit, and watch you tolerate it. If it's all in my head, tell me now. Tell me I've got it wrong somehow. I know my love should be celebrated, but you tolerate it. It really is this unappreciated love, or this love that has turned into this. I made you my temple, my mural, tie back to painting. So this is a woman who's a painter. And also, you know, oftentimes love and relationships can be correlated with art and is expressed in art, so it's this kind of nice tie-in. Anyway, I made you my temple, my mural, my sky. Now I'm begging for footnotes in the story of your life, which once again kind of tie into 'Tis the Damn Season, with this idea of, you know, people writing books about your life. So this idea of what's told about your life oftentimes may not be the accurate representation of it, but still it's just kind of heartbreaking. Like, I've done so much for you and you're giving me almost nothing in return except for like your physical existence next to my physical existence. But then there's kind of this surge of power, or potential power, when she says, you assume I'm fine, but what would you do if I break free and leave us in ruins, took this dagger in me and removed it? Which is such a, that line, like, you know, like, you've put this dagger in me, you've made so much hurt, what if I removed it? What if I removed you from my picture? What if I gained the weight of you, then lose it? It's like this relationship has put such a burden on her and her emotions. So what if she just let it go? And that believe me, I could do it, is almost like threatening in a way, which in this case I kind of love. And then it ends on, I sit and watch you. So she's back to this place of just observing, and there's no conversation being had. You go into her head for a while it's like if you're watching a movie and you're seeing this couple in a house, right? And you see this woman and she's, you know, watching her husband, and you kind of go into her mind and get a glimpse of her mind, and then you kind of zoom out and she's still just watching and staring, but you know all this deeper information now about that relationship and its faults. But yeah, this song is in the Dropped Your Hand While Dancing chapter, along with Champagne Problems. And I actually think that the people who are singing in this are two different women. I mean, obviously it's Taylor Swift who's singing it, but the point of view of the woman in Champagne Problems and Tolerate It, I think, are two different women, but the same man. And here's why. In Champagne Problems, the two lovers are the same age. They went to college together. This dorm was once a madhouse. I made a joke. Well, it's made for me. How evergreen our group of friends. Don't think we'll ever say that word again. Soon they'll have the nerve to deck the halls that we once walked through. And so it's kind of like these two people were in college together, in dorms. They had the same friends, probably from that dorm. And so it seems like they're two people of the same age. And it's very clear from the ending that the woman did not feel like this was someone that she could marry. And so it doesn't make sense that they would marry and that they would be together. In Tolerate It, there's multiple references to the woman being much younger than him, or maybe not much younger, but definitely somewhat younger, not the same age. She says, you're so much older and wiser, and I wait by the door like I'm just a kid. He's older. And so I think it's kind of the same guy who had his heart broken from Champagne Problems girl. This is told from the point of view of the woman that Champagne Problems girl was talking about in the future. Like, you know, you'll find someone who won't leave you with champagne problems. This is that woman that he's now married to, but the relationship's still broken, and he can't give Tolerate It woman what Champagne Problems girl couldn't give him. I don't know if that made any sense. Champagne Problems, that woman, couldn't give him what he needed. And now the woman that he's with he can't give her what she needs. Even though it's these two different women saying these stories, it's this kind of tied chapter still. That's at least my interpretation of that. No Body, No Crime, featuring Haim. This song is super interesting, kind of like a murder mystery. Well, I guess it's not really a mystery because we know who did it. But, well, who did it twice, I guess. Two different people who did it. Anyway, really, really telling a story. You know, you get these different verses, but then these kind of repeated structures that slightly change. And so it's a very nice flow of telling the story. We start with this first piece, right? You meet Esty and you know that they have these Tuesday night Olive Garden dinner things. Then, like, okay, her husband's cheating. Then Esty disappears. You learn about, you know, him having a mistress and her moving in and almost like replacing her. And then Taylor's character, you know, then gets that guy, and then they all think it's the mistress when really it was her. So it's kind of everyone, you know, kind of taking each other out in ways that can't be detected of who actually did it. And it's really interesting how Taylor's character kind of goes about the killing or murder. Like, it's just kind of like good thing that, and then a fact about something that happened. So it never actually says like, oh, like this person killed this person. It's like, good thing my daddy made me get a boating license when I was 15. I've cleaned enough houses to know how to cover up a scene. Good thing Esty's sister's gonna swear that she was with me. Good thing his mistress took out a big life insurance policy because, you know, she's gonna need it. And so it's kind of all these facts and like putting them together of like, okay, you can tell where she's going with it, especially when afterwards she says they think she did it, but they just can't prove it. And then she thinks I did it, but she just can't prove it. And so, like a murder mystery, you kind of piece the puzzles together. Nowhere does it directly say that someone murdered someone, but you kind of follow the story along and piece that together. Also interesting is a play on words with no body, like, you know, if there's no body, there's no crime, and nobody, like, you know, nobody's around, nobody knows, like the word nobody. So that's, I don't know, I thought that was an interesting kind of play on words there. Happiness. Not the happiest song, if I'm being honest, but it kind of is in some ways. It's sad in some ways and happy in others. Maybe not happy, but uplifting. Before I get into any of the lyrics, I just want to point out that her voice holds a lot of emotion in this song. Like, there's certain points where it almost like breaks and wavers, and so I think just the way that she sings and the way she emotes through her singing really kind of does the song justice. I mean, she's not like belting or going crazy, but the emotion's there, and I think that's what's kind of important. There's a lot of complexity of emotion in this song, and her voice does a wonderful job of conveying that along with the lyrics and the, you know, instrumentation, which is very kind of stripped down. Maybe not stripped down, but yeah, I think it really lets the lyrics and her voice kind of show, almost like music you'd hear at sunrise or sunset, which I think is kind of the point, because it's like the sunset of this relationship as this divorce is happening, and she's reflecting on the divorce and their years spent together and how this is the end of a chapter. So the sunset in one chapter, but the sunrise on another. There was happiness because of you, and there'll be happiness after you. And both of these things can be true. I think that's my favorite part, is happiness in our history. Across our great divide, there's a glorious sunrise. So kind of going back to like how the music kind of feels like sunset, sunrise. They're, you know, across this great divide of them separating and being so distant, there is a glorious sunrise of a new beginning for them in separate areas, you know, like not with each other, but with their lives. It's not like this all or nothing, it's all bad and now it's all good. Like, it's this complex, like, it can be true that there was happiness because of you and there will be happiness after you. There was happiness in our history, but also pain in our history. And there's still the potential for happiness to exist after all the, you know, pain that we've caused each other. It wasn't all lost and all for nothing, but there's still something better coming both of our ways. I think another lyric I really love in this is I haven't met the new me yet, and this idea of self-growth, and I haven't met the new me yet, but she's coming. You know, there's this hope and this realization of self-growth, and it's okay to not be there as well. I also love this verse of, I can't make it go away by making you a villain. I guess that's the price I pay for 7 years in heaven. So you can kind of guess that they've been married for 7 years, which is also, you know, play on words with, or play on phrase with the game of 7 years of heaven, though it seems like maybe it wasn't heaven if their relationship was painful, but anyway, and I pulled your body into mine every goddamn night. Now I just get fake niceties. That is such a great lyric. This, like, you know, really close intimacy, and now it's like, okay, now I just get this very superficial shit from you. And that's kind of what our relationship has come to now, I guess. It's a nice kind of parting song. Kind of like how Champagne Problems was like a goodbye letter. This is like a goodbye letter, almost to, rather than to the other person, almost to like herself and just that relationship in general. Dorothea. Okay, this song. I've definitely played this song the most. It's just, the sound is very light, it's very breezy, it feels warm, and it's really freaking catchy. It just gets stuck in my head all the time. But earlier I talked about 'Tis the Damn Season and how I think these are related. So let's talk about that. I think that 'Tis the Damn Season is from Dorothea's perspective. And then this song is from the point of view of the guy that 'Tis the Damn Season was about. And there's kind of a lot of different reasons for this, but in this song, he's clearly talking about someone who went off to like follow their career in like, you know, becoming famous, whether that's like an actress or a singer or whatever, but some type of like make it as a star sort of career, right? And in 'Tis the Damn Season, there's that verse, I'll go back to LA and the so-called friends who will write books about me if I ever make it and wonder about the only soul who can tell which smiles I'm faking. They're both these stories about, you know, hometown lover almost like left behind and someone going off and trying to make their way in their world through becoming a star. And kind of the two different sides and perspectives of that. 'Tis the Damn Season was a lot more melancholy of a song. This is more just warm and well wishes. There's that lyric, you got shiny friends since you left town. The tiny screen's the only place I see you now. And I got nothing but well wishes for you. There's also that also similar thing of the soul, like, are you still the same soul I met under the bleachers? If you're ever tired of being known for who you know you'll always know me. In 'Tis the Damn Season, she's talking about how you're the only one who really knows me, and this guy's kind of like affirming that, you know, like if you get tired of being known for who you know and all this kind of hoopla of the industry, then you'll always know me. I also really like the, do you ever stop and think about me? When you had this intimate connection with someone and then they're off doing their thing wherever, especially if it seems like they're, you know, having a great time and living their best life, it's kind of like, I wonder if they ever think about me like how I think about them. It's just like a question, but it's pretty powerful, especially in this song in the context of everything going on. Also, another lyric that I thought was really cool was, the stars in your eyes shined brighter in Tupelo. When I first heard this, I was like, what the heck is Tupelo? So I looked it up, and it's the hometown of Elvis Presley. Obviously, Elvis Presley was a huge star, but the idea of the stars in your eyes shine brighter in Tupelo, like they shined brighter in your hometown, which is where I am. And at the end of 'Tis the Damn Season, she ends it with, this road always leads back to you and my hometown, and also the stars in your eyes, and she's looking to be a star, and she is a star, so it's just a lot of nice wordplay there. And kind of this idea of this song being more light and "'Tis a Damn Season" being a bit more somber, it almost reflects the Cardigan Betty dynamic in Folklore. Cardigan and "'Tis a Damn Season" are songs that are earlier in the album that talk about this larger time span and have this more somber tone and reflection, whereas Betty and Dorothea are from the male's point of view, and it's a lighter tone, almost just kind of like, it is what it is, and I hope it'll work out. And Betty, he's like, I showed up at your party, I try to apologize, and in this he's like, I always have well wishes for you, you can always come back home, so that's interesting how those parallel. Also, of course, another obvious parallel is in the titles. The song Betty is, her name is the title and it's from the guy's point of view, and Dorothea, her name is the title and it's the guy's point of view. And when the song's from the girl's point of view earlier, it's not, there are no names in the title. Coney Island featuring The National. Alright, so Dropped Your Hand While Dancing chapter, very clear ties to Tolerate It specifically. I think it's the same relationship discussed in Tolerate It. Did I close my fist around something delicate? Did I shatter you? And that kind of goes back to in Tolerate It when the woman is talking about how, like, I could leave you, I could take this dagger out of me, I could break free and leave us in ruins. Believe me, I could do it. And so there's that kind of crossover there. The question pounds my head. What's a lifetime of achievement if I pushed you to the edge, but you were too polite to leave me? The male in this relationship, the National, is singing this part, and that kind of, parallels the male in Tolerate It when she's saying, like, now I'm begging for footnotes in the story of your life. And so it seems like person is putting his work and his achievement and all this stuff before his partner, and now he's kind of regretting that, and like, what's a lifetime of achievement of this book of my life and all this stuff if I push you to the edge and you're too polite to leave me. And then Tolerate It, the woman is kind of contemplating leaving or not, but doesn't seem like she's quite in that place yet. Another lyrical tie-in between the two songs that I personally really like is, did I paint your bluest skies the darkest gray? If you remember in Tolerate It, there's this reference to painting. I used my best colors for your portrait. I made you my temple, my mural, my sky. This woman is, does painting to some degree, whether it's her profession or just a hobby, but clearly painting is something that's important to the storyteller of Tolerate It, and something that is in their relationship. She's painting portraits of him, she's comparing him in their relationship to like a mural, and murals kind of usually tell a story. And so it's interesting how there's, in Tolerate It, that relationship has this motif of painting, and then that is brought back again in Coney Island. Whereas painting oftentimes adds color and life, it's almost like the opposite of that. Like, did I take away the color from the painting of your life? And of course, sorry for not making you my centerfold over and over. In Tolerate It, the man that she's singing about is clearly not making her his centerfold. There's also that lyric of the podium, but when I walked up to the podium, I think I forgot to say your name. Once again, that lyric of her begging for for footnotes in the story of his life, and he's not giving her that, but she's such an important person to him. When he got into the accident, the person that flashed before his face was her, but he's still not giving her that recognition in this public-facing portion of his life. So once again, this kind of disconnect between what's real and what's shown publicly. Lost again with no surprises, disappointments, close your eyes, and it gets colder and colder when the sun goes down. That line, when the sun goes down, it kind of makes me think of when the honeymoon phase is over, when the warmth leaves the relationship. In this case, in Tolerate It and in Coney Island, this love is depicted as something that was once beautiful but is now devoid of color and cold and painful. When the sun goes down, when the warmth and happiness left that relationship, and now it's just, not showing up for each other, disappointments, and it got to a point where it can't be reversed almost. And now it's this looking back, like, where did my baby go? The sun set and I didn't even realize kind of thing. This is later in life than Tolerate It, once the relationship has seemingly come to a breaking point or been past a breaking point. So Tolerate It and Coney Island are two different time points on the same line of a relationship. Another one that was interesting, the guy who says, "Will you forgive my soul when you're too wise to trust me and too old to care?" And this kind of going back to Tolerate It, when she's saying, like, you're so much older and wiser than me, and he's saying, well, once you're old and wise, you're gonna realize that you can't trust me, and once you're at this point of being older and wiser, like, I hope you'll forgive me. But I also really like, do you miss the rogue who coaxed you into paradise and left you there? Maybe it's almost he meant to leave her there because it felt like going beyond that, leaving paradise. He didn't want her to leave paradise or what he had constructed of paradise, but in doing so, he put her in this very painful place. I don't know if that makes any sense. Let me know if that makes sense. I think also one of my favorite lines is, "The mischief, the gift-wrapped suburban dreams." That phrase, gift-wrapped suburban dreams, is just so pretty and kind of shows this, like, this promise early on in the relationship for what their life will be like, and then it doesn't live up to that. It's a dream. It's not what reality was, and it's gift wrapped, so it's seen through rose-colored glasses, so to speak. I think that's a really beautiful lyric. Ivy, the Evermore version of illicit affairs, but slightly different. I think one of the key differences between Ivy and illicit affairs is the nature of the affair. I mean, in both they're kind of aware of the situation, but Ivy feels more like some type of arranged marriage or some situation where someone's forced to be married to someone that they don't really want to, and they're in love with this other person, and these two people having the affair are both equally in love, and it's this forbidden love. I've seen some people kind of say that it's like potentially two women in love, and one of them's married to this guy. That's an interesting theory as well. But in illicit affairs, it seems almost more like a one-sided love. Like, they don't necessarily reciprocate the intensity of feelings that that person has, and it doesn't seem like their lover is in a forced romance. It's like there's more choice there. Illicit affairs is kind of more about the heartbreak of having an illicit affair with someone who is in a relationship and won't choose or leave that person, whereas this seems more like the heartbreak of two people being in love but not being able to be together because of a forced marriage or forced impending marriage. She says, "You take my hand, but it's been promised to another." So it hasn't happened yet, but it's going to. Especially with lyrics like, "My pain fits in the palm of your freezing hand." So this person they're not happy with their current relationship. It's something that seems forced, and it's that their hand's been promised to another. He's in the room. He wants what's only yours. Like, I can't give him my love because I don't love him. I love you. It also feels like this person didn't willingly fall in love with this person. They didn't willingly get into this marriage that they're, in, but they also didn't willingly fall for this person. Like, it almost feels like the way it's written about, I can't stop you growing roots in my dreamland. Your ivy grows and I'm covered in you. Like, it feels like something that's happening to her rather than, you know, something that she's choosing. And so it's almost like in both relationships, she didn't necessarily have choice. Which I think also, like, as a listener, maybe you have a little more sympathy because of that. Because, you know, with any illicit affair, your thought is, well, that is really inconsiderate to the partner who's being cheated on. But in this, because it's, you know, seems like a forced marriage and this kind of affair between two people that actually love each other, like, I feel like we as a society tend to root for true love, and it in this tale it almost feels like these two people in the affair are really in love, and, you know, there's like a cuckold character who she's married to, whereas in illicit affairs it's kind of more like, yeah, okay, this isn't the most moral thing, but you still see that third person's pain of being the second choice, the one on the outs, which is interesting because normally we tend to villainize that person. Cowboy Like Me. This song reminds me kind of musically of No Body, No Crime. This kind of like more western-y kind of feel, I guess. I feel like I've watched a western love story movie, you know, like it's in terms of, you obviously get the feeling of like these two people are very alike each other and they understand each other, but also like the details, which is I think also similar to No Body, No Crime. You get these details of these people and their stories. This kind of does so on a less intense level, especially in the bridge. She says, "The old men that I've swindled really did believe I was the one, and the ladies lunching have their stories about when you pass through town, but that was all before I locked it down." So you have these characters, you're learning about their, you know, con-like behavior, but these kind of details of specific kind of things that they've done. And you kind of see this change and this transformation as this person kind of, they meet each other in the same, but they kind of change their ways. Especially in that third verse, she says, "Never wanted love, just a fancy car. Now I'm waiting by the phone like I'm sitting in an airport bar." Kind of, you know, wanting money, but then actually finding love with each other. And at least from the singer's point of view, we can see that she has these real feelings. Long story short, the invisible string of Evermore, kind of. Once again, little different. This song, you know, it's kind of more upbeat. It also seems to be about her actual life rather than these other kind of plots and worlds and characters that she's building. Whereas Invisible String kind of focused solely on their relationship and how, you know, like, oh, we've been tied together by this invisible string. I think this, long story short, focuses more on her and the place that she was at and how this relationship helped, I don't want to say save her, because I don't want to imply that she wouldn't have gotten here without the relationship, but really, you know, paved the way for a lot of growth. So it is about the relationship, but it's also about her struggles and her growth from that a bit more compared to Invisible String. Like, we don't even get, you know, she doesn't even start talking about their relationship until after the first chorus, until the post-chorus where she says, "Now I'm all about you, I'm all about you." Before, she's talking about how, you know, she was picking her battles, how she was in misery, and I love this line too. "Pushed from the precipice, clung to the nearest lips, long story short, it was the wrong guy." And I think Taylor has kind of, you know, the media has very much exploited and kind of latched onto all these romantic relationships that she's had in her past. And so I think she's kind of reflecting on that, like, I fell from the pedestal right down the rabbit hole. Long story short, it was a bad time. So just reflecting on that time in her life. And I love how she kind of addresses her past self later in the song as well. She says, "Past me, I want to tell you not to get lost in these petty things. Your nemesis will defeat themselves before you get the chance to swing." And he's passing by, rare as the glimmer of a comet in the sky, and he feels like home. So it's like, don't get wrapped up in all this negativity surrounding you. You don't want to miss out on this wonderful thing that's about to happen. And he's passing by. Don't let him pass you by, and better things are coming. Also interesting how she says, "And we live in peace," compared to the song Peace off of Folklore, where she's saying, "Would it be enough if I can never give you peace?" And I think, that's kind of talking more about how there's always drama and craziness kind of surrounding her lifestyle because of the media and like just what she has been through, and that she's so watched and followed and commented on by the media. But it's almost like there's peace in accepting that you can never give someone that type of peace. And also, if you're looking for your peace in someone else, you'll never find it. That's something you have to find for yourself. And so it's almost like in acknowledging that and in doing their own work, it's like, oh, we live in peace, like I've dropped my sword and my own personal battles, and in doing so, it's led us to this point where we can live in peace. So that was interesting to me, having that tie-in of like, and we live in peace, whereas last album she's like, I could never give you peace. Also have to point out, mention of Evermore, the album, now I just keep you warm and my waves meet your shore, ever and evermore. There's multiple ties to the album name throughout this album. That's here, it's also in the song Evermore, but it's nice to see it here, and it's something that's kind of positive, and like my waves meet your shore, ever and evermore, which has been different to my past loves where maybe my waves never met their shore, and it definitely didn't ever and evermore. So it's kind of this peace in that, and it's this kind of positive, lasting love, which is nice. It's nice to see that. It's refreshing. Marjorie. This song, I cried the first time I listened to it. I was watching the lyric videos on Taylor Swift's YouTube. This song has a lot of photos of her grandmother, and so it's a really beautiful video. If you haven't watched it, I highly suggest you do. As the song goes on, you realize that it's about her grandmother and how when people pass, even though they're gone, like, I know better, but I still feel you, like you're still here, what died didn't stay dead. So like even when people pass, their like legacy and their effect on people and their essence doesn't really go away. The lyrics are very like simple, like they're not overly descriptive as opposed to like a song like Ivy, for example, but they're really simple and they really, I don't think pack a punch is the right word, but they're very impactful. And I think that is probably the right or best route to go with a song like this, is just kind of let the emotions speak for themselves, having the lyrics be very clear and poignant and just, yeah, and then the music isn't too overpowering either. She also kind of starts out the song and later in the song kind of talks about some of that legacy that she left behind in terms of her mindset and approach to life.
Never be so polite you forget your power. Never wield such power you forget to be polite.
You can see how that also really ties into Taylor, who is someone who has so much power in different ways you might imagine, but how that kind of impacted her life and perspective as a celebrity in the public eye. And I think the most touching in that kind of approach, I guess, to the song, looking at it that way, is when she says, all your closets of backlogged dreams and how you left them all to me. And you could see that, you know, throughout the song, you see that she's a singer too, like, oh, if I didn't know better, I think you're singing to me now. And it seemed like she was a rising star too, her grandma. And so seeing how she kind of almost started something and seeing how big Taylor is now as a singer, it's almost like her grandmother started something and Taylor finished it, and kind of that shared dream and like Taylor achieving those backlog dreams is just something that's very like, it just like really touches your heart, you know? At least for me. I take what I said back about, you know, the very descriptive lyrics. She does in the bridge get a bit descriptive with her lyrics, with the autumn chill that wakes me up, you loved the amber sky so much. Long limbs and frozen swims, you'd always go past where our feet could touch. Like that is, you know, a bit more descriptive, but it's kind of telling this story of part of their relationship together. Also, another thing that I want to say about Marjorie, looking at Folklore, it's like the equivalent of Epiphany. You know, like she wrote this song on Folklore about her grandfather, and now she has this song on Evermore about her grandmother. So it's a nice kind of mirrored balance there. So, this song, Closure. The beginning is really interesting how it starts, the intro musically, and it's similar to the end. It kind of ends on a similar note of these kind of just like banging instruments. And I think that kind of shows how, you know, one of the first things she says is, it's been a long time and seeing the shape of your name still spells out pain. It wasn't right the way it all went down. Looks like you know that now. So it kind of shows that there's been this relationship where there was a lot of pain. So almost this like, you know, bang, bang, bang kind of intro. It seems like, you know, this person reaches out to her out of the blue. Things have maybe started to settle down and then they come back again. So it's kind of like these cannonballs kind of going off again and brings her back to this pain and this chaotic emotional atmosphere. At least that's my take on it. I would love to hear what yours is, because it is a really interesting intro. Another thing that's super interesting, I keep saying that, but about this song is if you watch the lyric video that she posted on her channel, which is how I watched all these songs the first time, when she says closure, like I don't need your closure, there's quotes around closure, which is like, ooh, you know, like that's so interesting. Like I don't need your closure. It's almost like it's not even real closure. It's like just trying to like patch something up. I think a lyric she had there was really, really nice and beautifully put. She said, I know I'm just a wrinkle in your new life. Staying friends would iron it out so nice. Guilty, guilty, reaching out across the sea that you put between you and me, but it's fake and it's oh so unnecessary. So it's almost like this closure isn't real closure. It's like him attempting to make things better when he's already fucked it up to the point beyond repair. Seeing the shape of your name still spells out pain. That's, it's such a beautiful lyric. I mean, just like, it just, you see it and it just, you just feel something. Reminds me of the song Haley Steinfeld. She has a song called Your Name Hurts, and that whole song is kind of the epitome of what's in those two lines. I also really like that line, it cut deep to know ya, right to the bone. So similar feeling as in the other lyric, but just spelled out differently, and I think both are, you know, just lyrically very well done. Evermore featuring Bon Iver. Some songs you really like the first time you hear them, you know, when you listen to an album, there are songs that you are immediately drawn to and are kind of your immediate favorites. And then there are songs that you listen to a couple times, and as you listen to it more, they really grow on you and become your favorites. Evermore was that second version for me. The first time I heard it, the part with Bon Iver where he first comes in just felt so disjointed from the rest of the song that it kind of caught me off a little bit, like a little off guard, and I didn't really know what to make of it. But I think that's kind of the point. Like he's singing about like being in this very messy, disorienting situation, and he's saying like, I'm out on the waves being tossed, violence of the dog days. Voices are kind of overlapping and there's just kind of a lot going on, and it's supposed to resemble this disorienting, unsure, or messiness, you know? Also, I think the part where, you know, he says his part and then he sings it again as Taylor comes in and sings, and I think that part is really pretty as well. Also in that part, Taylor mentions being shipwrecked, which brings it back to that imagery at the very beginning of the album with Willow. At the beginning, she's talking about, you know, the ships rolling in and him cutting through her rough waters. And now, you know, it's the end of the album and she mentions being shipwrecked. And so it's a nice bookending of imagery on the album. And I think that line with shipwrecked is just kind of beautiful. Like, and when I was shipwrecked, I thought of you in the cracks of light. I dreamed of you. It was real enough to get me through. I think that's really like, I don't know, when you're at a low and you like think of someone or dream of someone and it gets you through something, like that is really powerful. It's almost like what the person represents is in a way almost more powerful than the person themselves. But the lyric that I was really taken with is, and I was catching my breath, floors of a cabin creaking under my step. And I couldn't be sure, I had a feeling so peculiar, this pain wouldn't be forevermore. And this is, of course, in contrast to the beginning of the song when she says, I had a feeling so peculiar, this pain would be forevermore. And then it changes at the end to like, I had this feeling that it wouldn't be forevermore. And that just is my favorite part, I think, of the whole album, because throughout this entire album, it's talking about, aside from maybe Long Story Short and maybe a couple songs, a lot of it is about painful love and difficult love and hard love and all this pain that comes with all these different situations of love being messy. And it kind of pulls it all together of like, it's gonna be okay. This pain won't be forevermore. And I think that's a very beautiful way to end the album. Of course, there's 2 bonus tracks, but they're bonus tracks for a reason. And this song was meant to be the end song for the album, and I can see why. Right Where You Left Me. This song, this is a song that I've definitely had on repeat a lot. It's so lyrically amazing. Like, it's, I mean, all of her songs are lyrically great, but like, it's just like one after the other. The tempo of it is just like kind of keeps going and going, and it's just so freaking catchy too. And I remember the first time I listened to this, I was just felt like, whoa, I was just getting hit with like information and story because it kept going and it was so rich in each line. And it really conveys this emotion of this girl who just like, never anywhere does it say like, I'm sad that you left me, you know, like it conveys that through this imagery and description of this woman who can't get over this love who left her, and it's like, I'm still at the restaurant, like in my brain I'm there every day reliving these moments. And later when she says like, I'm sure you've got a wife out there, kids and Christmas, but I'm unaware, if our love died young I can't bear witness. There's just like so many good lines. It's just so good and so raw. And I love how at the beginning she talks about the passage of time. Like, it's kind of passage of time versus being paused and halted in time, right? And the way that she describes the passage of time with friends break up, friends get married, strangers get born, strangers get buried. You know, these aren't day-to-day things or things that we normally think about in day-to-day, but these are things that happen every day. You know, every day people break up, people get married. It's such a beautiful way to describe the passing of time. And also it's relationship based, and like people breaking up or getting married, like they broke up, this couple, and She's like, he might be married by now. Pages turn and stick to each other. Time can be messy, like in, what's that song? 'Tis the Damn Season, where it's like, time flies messy as the mud on your truck tires. Time passing, you know, the books being read and pages are turning, but sometimes they stick to each other. And it's not this perfect passage of time. Like her age of 23 is getting stuck to, you know, like her pages are getting stuck there. And yeah. And that bridge, I don't even know if it's the bridge, but the part where it kind of calms down and gets all quiet, it kind of acts like the bridge if it isn't, but where she says, I could feel the mascara run, you told me that you found someone. Like, it's just, you really can picture, and throughout, you know, when she's talking about being at the restaurant, you can picture this scene like it's a movie or a music video. You can see it and feel the emotion and all the energy in that scene without actually seeing anything. It's time to go. Where do I even start with this one? In comparison to the other bonus track song, Right Where You Left Me, it's interesting because Right Where You Left Me describes a relationship that seemed to end too early and the pain of a relationship getting cut off. Whereas this song is the opposite situation. The pain of staying in a relationship almost too long. And it's almost like this is a picture of what would have maybe happened if they hadn't broken up in Right Where You Left Me. You know, like it's showing the pain of two different situations, two opposite sides of the spectrum in time of a wrong relationship. And also it's this difference of being stuck and moving on and moving forward, which once again, I think in terms of the two bonus tracks that I've shared, I think it's good to end on this one as opposed if it was reversed, because like in the song Evermore, it ends on this pain of like, on this point of this pain isn't forevermore. There are better things coming. And the first one, Right Where You Left Me, talks about being stuck, and then this one talks about moving forward. And I think that's a great note to end on, and it echoes the sentiment of the end of the album with the song Evermore. And I think my standout lyric for this song is, he's got my past frozen behind glass, but I've got me. That's just such a powerful line. Like, he may have taken so much of my life from me, but at the end of the day, I have me, I have my future, I have me, and that's the most important part. And one thing that I love about the song is that it is coming from a place of power. And looking at the Dropped Your Hand While Dancing chapter, which the song is a part of, a lot of those other songs were in this place of not really having as much power, at least not in the way that it is in here. And so you kind of see this relationship struggling and this woman knowing that she deserves better and trying to come to grips with that. And then you kind of see that really take form here. I gave it my all, he gave me nothing at all, then wondered why I left. So you saw her in Tolerate It, contemplating leaving and realizing that she should, and seeing the dynamics of this relationship, and now you see like how it kind of played out and that she did take that step. You also see the passage of time more. In one of the earlier songs, I can't remember off the top of my head, but she says, guess that's the price you pay for 7 years in heaven. I think it was happiness, but that implies that 7 years into the relationship, and there was this kind of break there with happiness when she maybe initially left. And then here she says 15 years, 15 million tears. So you see that it's been 15 years since the start of the relationship. Maybe they haven't been together that whole time, but it's been 15 years as opposed to 7 years. Maybe she did leave at 7 years and she's reflecting on what that was like 7 years ago and how she's grown in that 7 years after, and like, you know, when it's time to go, and I knew. Or maybe she left and they got back together. I don't know, but it's interesting to see that those specific references to time and how many years have gone by. Also, it starts out with, when the dinner is cold and the chatter gets old, you ask for the tab. In Coney Island, there's this imagery of the relationship getting colder outside, and it's just a very cold feeling song. So it kind of references Coney Island a little bit in the lyrics. It references Tolerate It, and it kind of is this weaving and wrapping up of this relationship in a way. As I said, great way to end the album fully. Even though the song Evermore kind of ended the album, in the full album, this is also a great place to end. Of it's not the end, it's a beginning. You know when it's time to go. When looking at Evermore as an album versus Folklore, I feel like Folklore was kind of delving into just a lot of pain, and Evermore did too, but it almost felt like Evermore was in this place of processing the pain and moving through it and forward. In the song The Lakes, she says, like, I just want to sit here and watch wisteria grow right over my bare feet because I haven't moved in years. And it feels like in Evermore, it's kind of in that process of doing that, and the wisteria's grown a little bit, and she's gotten maybe a little softer on herself and her past. Even like very literally with the song Ivy, like Ivy's growing, you know. I guess this album, just the overall tone and message, feels a bit more calm and like an acceptance of what is happening and has happened, and just kind of, you know, letting go of the past and moving forward. Whereas Folklore seemed a bit more hurt, I guess, and just kind of still being in that place of hurt. I don't know. That's my interpretation, at least. Love to hear what your thoughts are on that, the differences between Folklore and Evermore as albums. And yeah, I guess that's it. I guess we're done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Love to hear what your interpretations were, what your standout lyrics were for songs. And yeah, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day or evening or whatever it may be wherever you are. Fun fact, I have a writing Instagram account that I recently made. I've always loved writing. I have a degree in English and a minor in professional writing. I worked as a content writer for 2 years after graduation. And I've kind of done like some form of creative writing for like most of my life, but always kind of been something that was more kind of pushed to the side. And so I'm trying to write more and show it. So I have a writing account on Instagram. It's called by Zarina. So if you're interested in checking that out, that's there, that exists. Another thing that I've recently done is I started a sex podcast. So we talk about a whole range of topics relating to sexuality, sex, relationships, self-love, etc. And so if you're interested in that, I do post the video versions of the podcast on this account. And yeah, but it's also available to listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, really wherever you get your podcasts. It's called The Virgin and the Bees. I just realized that having lots of these open, honest, and candid conversations with friends made me feel a lot more like empowered. And so I wanted to kind of bring the same energy in that podcast. Each episode we talk about a certain topic. I bring a guest on and we share personal stories, we share some studies and or statistics, we kind of just talk about topic in general. So it's really fun. So yeah, go check that out if you think that'd be interesting as well. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, I believe it's time for me to go. Woo! Bye!